1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 is the number of Resident Evil games that currently exist. Today, I'm going to be talking about the second Resident Evil game, also commonly known as Resident Evil 2. My name is Ned, and why am I doing this? Because I want to. And also, sometimes I play video games, and afterwards, I like to record my thoughts. I don't typically do anything with them, unless I do something with them, as you can see by these. Originally, I was going to take a video I made last year on the Resident Evil 2 remake, and combine it with a video I would make after I completed the original Resident Evil 2. However, as I reviewed the footage of the 2 make, it was only 5 minutes long and so incoherent I could not do anything with it, and if you do not believe me, take a look at this. Big hog. A few initial thoughts I have on this game. One, I don't like being chased, and so I want to continue on by saying, I did, before reviewing that footage, record my Resident Evil original 2 thoughts, and it was 17 minutes long, and here's just a snippet of that if you just want to see. I almost said gaping. He's not really gaping. I guess I was talking about gaping holes. If you couldn't tell, that one was really good. But I still want to do a combination platter of a video about the 2 games and my thoughts on both of them, so that's what this is. Instead of 2 videos smushed together, you're getting 1 video written on 2 videos smushed together. That made sense. Before I actually talk about my thoughts on Resident Evil 2 and the 2 make, I will give you a little summary of what Resident Evil 2 is. If for some reason you don't know, if this is the first Resident Evil video you have ever clicked in your life, God, you're in for a little special treat. Resident Evil 2 is the second main game in the Resident Evil series. It came out in January of 1998 and was released for the GameCube, Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, and there was even a port for the N64. The way that they made that port is really interesting, and if you have any interest in Resident Evil history at all, you should really read the book Itchy Tasty, because it's got some good crap in there. The story follows 2 main characters from the franchise. First being motorcycle freak college student Claire Redfield, and the second being straight twink rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy. And we follow them during a zombie outbreak in the famous Raccoon City, which is real. In the story, Claire Redfield is looking for her brother, Chris Redfield, which is a protagonist from the first game, and throughout her wanderings runs into a little girl named Sherry Birkin. Claire spends most of the game running after Sherry and learning that her parents had a large hand in the outbreak itself, and the weird mutations happening as well. Leon, however, was on his way to the first day of his new job as a police officer for Raccoon City. Throughout his journey, he meets up with a character called Ada Wong, and the two of them kind of save each other's asses, though Leon mostly gets really messed up because of her. And yeah, I guess he basically just tries to figure out what's going on. Shut the hell up. That's the blanket plot I'm going to give. If you want a more detailed version of that, you can read a freaking wiki. You can find a 7-hour history video on the whole Resident Evil timeline, and then you can come back. But right now, I'm just talking. 2024 is the year boys get to yap. I don't make the rules. I just do. As I said before, the game follows these 2 characters, and you can actually pick who you want to play as. And if you're struggling with picking, oh, do I want to be a straight twink or a motorcycle freak? Well, there's great news. You don't have to. The game offers it both in A and B scenario. And if you don't know what that means, I'll frickin' inject you with the G virus. And then I'll tell you that it means you just get to pick which character you want to play as first. And then there's another scenario of the game where you play as the other character. One character first, another character second. A, B. It makes sense. And if that sounds like it would be boring, it's really not. Each scenario offers different paths, characters, monsters, and even bosses. There are also certain points in A scenario where you can take certain weapons or items, and then in the B scenario, they won't be there anymore. So it makes it more difficult for that character in that run. The original game sort of tricks you into being Leon first, because there are 2 discs when you open it up. There is a disc 1 with Leon on it, and a disc 2 with Claire on it. And I bet if you were opening this up for the first time ever, you would think just to start with disc 1. And that would make Leon your first character. That is the character selection for the original game, which is kind of fun. You just put in the disc of the character you want to play as. For my game, for the original PlayStation 1 copy, I chose Claire for that scenario. I wanted to play her first. I've heard that Capcom has said that her scenario, being a scenario, is also canon, so I wanted to see what that was like. The remake... I'm so sorry, I swore. The 2-make is more upfront about the character selection and actually just lets you pick between, and for that one, I picked Leon. I ended up playing the 2-make last year, and I shot my video on December 24th, 2023. I did not realize it would take me almost a full year to play the original. Granted, I haven't been playing it all year, okay? I played other things. I'm a Yakuza boy. But I started playing it in around November and finished it early December. And as I was playing Resident Evil 2 for the PS1, I found that it was so campy in such a fun way. If you're familiar with Resident Evil 1 as well, or the Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut 1, it's just Resident Evil. You know the acting's not very good. In the second game, it's a bit better. It's not as stagnant, but it is still very silly. And it is a lot more silly, I would say, in Leon's scenario, because he's interacting with a lot more people. He has Ada to kind of play off of his entire time, whereas Claire, yes, she's interacting with Sherry a bit, but it's not often. Most of the time for Claire's scenario, you're alone. And it can be kind of terrifying, not only for the player, but I assume for the character as well, because she really doesn't know what's going on. All she wants to do is find her brother. I do want to say, though, the game is still scary. It's scary as hell. Through the use of fixed camera angles, tight hallways, and an overwhelming amount of enemies, it's spooky. When you're running around the precinct, you're not given any clues of what to do or where to go. You just know your character's drive. With Claire, she just wants to find her brother, so she's running around this precinct that she knows he works for, and is only finding nothing but undead creatures. Leon is a freaking cop. I do suppose he's just looking for other cops. He's a simple lad in this one. He meets a woman who's mean to him and falls in love, like happens so often. There aren't any mind-bending puzzles in the original game, but it is fun to explore the areas you're in, no matter how terrifying they are, because you get a lay of the land. If you die, you kind of know, oh, I don't need to go into that area, there's nothing for me there. Or you can open up a room and there are 6 zombies in there that are blocking one piece of ammo that you desperately need, and you gotta keep dying until you figure it out. I will say, as if I haven't been talking for so long already, do y'all remember 3D? My entire A scenario of the original game, I was waiting for my sweet boy, Mr. X, to pop out. And only did I realize by the end of that scenario, he's not coming out. Literally, I was in the lab. I was in the very last area of the game, and I was thinking, wow, it's been a really long time, and Mr. X still hasn't come out, but I'm sure he will. I'm dumb. Mr. X is a hulking bioweapon that was created by the Umbrella Corporation, and I'll put a little picture of him here. In the remake, he has a nice little hat. In the original game, like I said, he doesn't come out for the A scenario. He's only in the B scenario, which is one of the refreshing changes. I really liked that. I liked that there were different bosses in A and B. A scenario, especially if you do it as Claire, you fight a mutated version of Sherry Birkin's father, William Birkin, who created this virus called the G virus, injects himself with it, and becomes this horrifying creature, only chasing after Sherry because he feels that connection to her, though his mind has fully slipped. Or maybe mostly slipped. My mind has fully slipped. And Mr. X is such a fun baddie in the original. You'll be walking down a long hallway just knowing that it's the perfect space for him to crash through, but you just don't know when it's gonna happen. Sure, he does have only a small amount of fixed appearances, but they're so impactful. And they always kept me screaming. For example, there's a great scene in B Scenario where you have to click a button to get a trolley. You go down a ladder, you go into this little security hatch, and click this button, and you look to your left, and there are all these screens. You have the option to look at the screens, and if you do, you see Mr. X pop through the door you just came through, and will have to go back through, and he walks down the hallway. He walks right up to the security camera, looks at it, raises his fists, and just crashes into it. I don't know my own strength. And then it cuts back to you, and you have to go where he is. I hate it, but I love it. As you fight him, he evolves as well, and he turns into this giant gaping maw at the end of the game, and it's wonderful. It's gaping. What more can I say? Wow, hi everyone. I'm embarrassed, but it's actually William Birkin, not Mr. X that's the gaping maw. The 2-make, however, makes Mr. X a much more present and pressing entity. For one, he is in both the A and B scenario of the 2-make, rather than just B, and you might have a little breathing room before he comes out, but once he's out, he's proud. He lumbers after you the entire time. You can hear his footsteps in rooms away, so you can hear him coming, or floors above, which is terrifying because I hate being chased. And the chasing makes me think about Resident Evil 3 a little bit. Small Resident Evil 3 tangent. From my understanding, Nemesis was a really big deal when the original Resident Evil 3 came out. He was an enemy that could follow you across screens, and sure, there were moments where it was a fixed happening and you could fight or flight, but he could just pop up in different places and you never knew when or where, making it terrifying. And I think the reason why I've heard the 3-make isn't as good as the 2-make is because they made Mr. X that sort of nemesis figure. He can pop up and just follow you around. He's just always lingering somewhere around you. I haven't played any Resident Evil 3, either original nor 3-make. I do own both of them, so I will be playing them, but I just wanted to go on that tangent. Back to 2-make. I wholeheartedly believe that the 2-make keeps the core of the original Resident Evil 2 in its bones. It's not trying to cover up its past. It might be improving on some things, but the developers of this game made sure to use their recent technology to the game's advantage rather than just making a remake to make a remake. Instead of limiting the player's view through fixed camera angles, they made everything extremely dark, so you really have to rely on that flashlight to see things. The hallways are still cramped, the inventory system is still limited, though you can find packs to gain more slots, which also is reminiscent of the original, because there is a moment in the original where you are in a weapons locker and you can choose to take a machine gun, weapons packs, or both. But if you take one, it's not there for the B scenario. The game is also elevated a bit because instead of just finding random objects to put in their designated slots, the 2-make has actual puzzles that could get kind of mind-numbing at points, but they're still rewarding once you complete them. And yes, they lose the campiness for better acting, but it's not a bad change. I mean, I love camp, but this acting is good. It's not being overly dramatic to be dramatic, like in a couple other remakes that will remain nameless at this time, because I don't want to die. The 2-make, like I said, keeps the core of the original game while also amplifying its story and making it have a little bit more coherence. Because let's be real, the original story was kind of messy. This one, still messy, but like you shoved some stuff under the bed. You know, it's presentable. A really interesting thing also that the remake did to flesh out its story a bit more and its characters a bit more was they gave Marvin a little bit more to do. In the original, he's there to simply die and lock a door. By die, I mean turn into a zombie, but, you know, one and the same. In the remake, when you meet him, he's still bitten, but he's trying to help you out. And as you interact with him, he is deteriorating more and more until he eventually dies. And then as you're running around the precinct, there will be a moment where you come into the lobby and Marvin's back, except now he's shambling as a zombie. And you feel for him. You don't want him to die. He seemed like a cool guy, even though he was a cop. But it also prevents this sort of moral quandary of, do I put him out of his misery, or do I leave him to shamble these halls, because I don't have it in me to do it. Did I enjoy the original Resident Evil 2 over the remake? Yeah, I think I did. I had a lot more fun with it. Yes, the remake is incredibly scary, but the original balances its silliness and scariness and willingness to not chase me. If you have the opportunity or get the opportunity to play the original 2, whether it be on a console physically or emulation, I think you should do it. Yes, you will have to get used to tank controls, but you'll get used to them, in my experience. And it's so worth it. We're starting to live in a world where games are taking the movie route of remake, sequel, remake, and not all of them are good. Some of them, I believe, are remakes just to be remakes, just to make money, and I will leave those remakes nameless at this time, because I don't want to die. Though, I truly believe the remake is good. I mean, I played it a year ago, and I'm still thinking about it. It's also a little bit more accessible to play, so if you have a system to play that on, maybe you'd want to opt for that instead. Which, go off. Either way, I love Resident Evil 2, and I hope you do, too. Thanks for watching this video. I don't know, if this video gets 100 views and 5 likes, or 200 views for Resident Evil 2, I'll stream Resident Evil 2 Remake on my PS4. It's been a bit since I played it, and it would be fun. Bye-bye.